Hey there, nation, and welcome to the show where we help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander Cheapskate, and we are back with an episode of Tales from the Tacklezone Season 2. This is our series that is dedicated to our Blood Bowl battle reports, and this is battle report number 7. It is a game that takes place in the Old World Conference game number 7, that is played between the Dwarf Giants as well as the Champions of Death for the Shambling Undead. So my two friends, Iron Major as well as Shade, are throwing down on this one. Iron Major will be playing the Dwarf team, while my little sister Shade will be playing the Shambling Undead. And as you can see, both teams are squared off against one another on this one. So because of that, we're going to play some background music real quick. As the music is playing, we will show you photos as well as rosters for both teams. If you want to see exactly what they're bringing for this one, go ahead and pause and take a look at your own leisure. So that being said, let's get this game on a roll. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the kickoff in this one. So when it came to the organization, of course, since the Dwarf Giants for our major are visiting, and the visiting team on this one, they actually flipped the coin and called heads, and they managed to get heads on the coin flip, so they decided to actually receive the ball, and the first half is what they decided to do. So because of that, the Shambling Undead, of course, will be kicking off. The ball actually lands right over here in this square, and the reason why is because, one, we have perfect weather for Blood Bowl, and two, we got the high kick result for the high kick. So because of that, Iron Major decided to move up his kicker over here. His runner, player number 1, Othgrin Zach Mearson. He actually gets to move regardless of the number of movement balance he does have to go the same square the ball landed, and the ball landed right here. And he also managed to catch the ball as well. He was able to re-roll his first attempt because he failed the first time because he has a sure hand skill, so because he was able to catch the ball. And just like that, at the beginning of the top of the game, the Dwarf Giants have possession of the ball. So with that being said, now that the kickoff events are done, we go directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Dwarf Giants. So we go directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Dwarves, and this is the action that's taking place for the most part. So for Iron Major, he pretty much took his two runners, Othgrin Zach Mearson, as well as Tharbor Olekson, and they basically moved their normal movement allowance moving all the way from the backfield all the way directly to this bottom here, the wide zone. At the same time, his blitzer also moves forward in order to mark the white player at the same time, and then you see his runners are basically right here in possession of the ball in the wide zone. Now, probably the most dramatic play, of course, took place over here with Norin Zacharansson of the Troll Slayer. Using his frenzy ability, he was able to push back the ghoul, that's player number 4, Huachchai, managed to put him directly into the crowd. Was able to put a stun result on him, so because that he is currently on the ground, he is currently bleeding out as well. Unfortunate for Iron Major, though, he did try to throw a block with one of his players. He got a knockdown result, player knockdown result, and the reason why is because the mummy is extremely strong as opposed to his regular blockers, so because of that, he did not got player down result. He decided not to use one of his rerolls on that one, and that pretty much causes an end to the drive for turn number 1. So with turn number 1 over with for the Dwarves, we go directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Shambling Undead. Alright, so we're at the back of turn number 1 for the Shambling Undead, and as you can see, quite a bit of action has taken place here on the tabletop. First of all, let's talk about player number 12. Player number 12 is a skeleton by the name of Thatcha the Gifted. He actually throws a block directly into this blitzer. That's player number 3, Berlin Berenson. Managed to put him over and knock him out over, and also push him over to the square as well. That basically freed up player number 6, which is the white player on Amonten Apve. He decides to throw a blitz action directly into player number 1, Othgrin Zach Mearson. Now, because he did manage to get a power result, because of that, Zach Mearson does go to the ground. The ball does bounce directly towards player number 6, Amonten Apve, but he fails to catch it, so because that does bounce over one more square. And finally, over here on the top, we do have some more dramatic action taking place with the mummy player number 1, Aphid with the Sands. He managed to cause all kinds of problems by pushing and making a hole directly into the line. The main problem, though, is when this zombie player, though, does try to block a dwarf block over here, but unfortunately they both get both players down, so because they both go down, causing immediate turnover. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Dwarf Giants. All right, so we're back at the top of turn number 2 for the Dwarves, and this is after everything has taken place for the most part. As you can see, some dramatic actions taking place here on the bottom of the table. First of all, let's talk about the Troll Slayer, player number 2, Norin Zacharansson. He does a blitz action going back directly into player number 6, which is the white. That player's name is Amonton Alpha. Managed to get a power result, managed to push him back as well. Now, Zach Mearson did not manage to crack the armor, but it was enough to actually free that up for the other players to actually move through. So, first of all, starting off with player number 1, his name is Othgrin Zach Mearson, the runner. He actually gets back up on his feet, loses 3 movement to his 3 to his movement. He moves up and actually picks up the ball because the ball, which was in possession of the white, bounced over 1 square. He was able to pick up the ball, continue moving. He goes for it twice and actually makes it all the way to this position here. Now, meanwhile, Iron Major's second runner, that player's name is Tharbor Orlaxson. He actually moves up his max movement allowance through this gap caused between this Blitzer as well as his Troll Slayer and moves along the end zone. And for the first time ever, Iron Major decides to commit a foul as well, throwing a foul against player number 4, the Ghoul Watchchai. Managed to get right through his armor with the assist on the offense, and so because of that, he gets a knocked out result. So he is put inside of the goal box right now because he is currently seeing stars and bars, which is actually kind of crazy, all things considered as well. Now, for the rest of the turn, Iron Major just basically spends the rest of the turn standing up. His players were knocked down earlier, and he pretty much calls it for this point as well. So, with that being said, that takes directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Shambling Undead. All right, so that takes directly to turn number 2 for the Shambling Undead, and as you can see, a lot of dramatic things have happened on the table during Shade's activation. So let's go and talk about it. So first off, right over here in the wide zone, what ended up happening is that this zombie player over here threw a block directly into this blocker, was able to knock him down with a power result. So because of that, it pretty much freed up this player, player number 12. That's a skeleton named Thatcher the Gifted. He basically from there throws a blitz directly into Othgrin Zach Mearson, pushing him directly, doing a power result and pushing directly towards the crowd. Doesn't actually spill over the end zone, but 1 square over, which caused the ball to bounce 1 square over as well. Meanwhile, player number 6, which is this white character, his name is Amenta the Alpha. He basically throws a block action directly into Norman Zachronson. Actually managed to put a stun result on him, so he is face down right now, and he is currently bleeding out as well. Now, to continue trying to exploit this, what ended up happening is that her little sister Shade decided to activate her remaining ghoul. That player's name is Petsu the Shadow. He actually goes for it all the way over here, escaping out of the tackle zone from that blocker, moving all the way down and goes for it twice, rushing directly towards the ball so that hopefully during the next activation they can pick it up. Now, they do have to worry about this runner actually pick up the ball, but for him to do so, he has to escape out of the tackle zone for this player, so it could be a little bit more challenging for him. Meanwhile, the mummies make short work over here in the center, pushing players all the way back and creating holes within their line of scrimmage. Unfortunately, this skeleton player, though, does try to throw a block directly to this blitzer and gets player knocked down result. So because that caused immediate turnover for Shade for turn number 2. So with turn number 2 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Dwarves. All right, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Dwarf Giants. And unfortunately for our major, some disaster did strike. Well, let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. So first of all, his secondary runner, that player's name is Tharbor Olaxson. He actually managed to pass his agility test to get out of the tackle zone out of player number 12, which is the skeleton Thatcher the Gifted, managed to successfully pick up the ball. Now, originally he rolled a 1 for the roll, but because he's got the sure hands ability, he can re-roll again. So because he was able to pick up the ball, he actually goes for it twice and actually just a couple of spaces short of the end zone right over here. However, the problem though was player number 1, which is the second runner, Othgrin Zach Mearson. Now he does get back up, losing 3 to his movement. And he does manage to escape the tackle zone of player number 12, Thatcher the Gifted. And he tries to go for it once. He manages to pass it, goes for it twice, so that way he can run interference between this possible ghoul that might try to blitz this player. But unfortunately for him, he rolls a 1, and our manager can't make another re-rolls because he does fall to the ground, which causes immediate turnover. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Shambling Undead. Alright, so that takes us to turn number 3 for the Shambling Undead, and what it ends up happening is that Shade actually causes a turnover. What she does, she activates her ghoul, Petsu of the Shadow, player number 3. He does an amazing blitz action, sprinting across the battlefield and actually blitzing directly into player number 7, Tharbor Olexen, get both player down results. Because of they both go crashing the ground, causing immediate turnover. But the ball bounces 1 square, just short of actually going directly into the crowd. Now, the cool thing about this is that Petsu of the Shadow managed to puncture the armor of Tharbor Olexen and actually put a knocked out result on him. So just like that, he is currently right now in the dugout seeing stars and Tweety birds as he's trying to recover from the blow. And that's pretty much interesting because like when Shade did that, Shade kind of shouted out, "That's for what you did to my sister," for putting that foul action directly onto the other ghoul, which is actually kind of cool. So because of that, that takes directly to the end of turn number 3 and directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Dwarves. And that takes directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Dwarves. And once again, controversy actually happens once again over here. It was absolutely insane. So my friend Iron Major then activates Othgrin Zakmirson. Othgrin Zakmirson gets back on his feet again, losing 3 squares to his movement, and he moves up to pick up the ball, which is able to do so without having to use his sure hand ability, which is kind of nice. Now here's where the problem comes in. He tries to go for it, and when he goes for it, he actually rolls a 1. So because that's going to cause immediately for him to fall over. However, my buddy Iron Major decided to use his very last reroll in order to roll again. So he rolled for a second time, he rolled another 1, and just like that, Othgrin Zakmirson falls to the ground. The ball bounces to the 3 o'clock position and lands just short of the enemy's end zone. And just like that, caused an immediate turnover for the Dwarves. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Shambling Undead. Alright, so that takes regular turn number 4 for the Shambling Undead, and once again, another turnover is taking place. I swear these two friends of mine should open a bakery because they're specializing in turnovers right now. But anyways, Petsu the Shadow. What ends up happening is he gets back on his feet again, losing 3 squares of his movement. He moves in directly to pick up the ball, passes agility test to pick up the ball, and he tries to go for it. He goes for it once, makes no problem whatsoever. Goes for it twice, rolls a 1 this time around, and Shade, of course, decides to burn one of her rerolls in order to make that happen. Unfortunately, because she burned one of her rerolls, she rolled again, rolled another 1. So because that Petsu the Shadow does fall, the ball bounces to the 1 o'clock position, 1 square over, and causes an immediate turnover for this drive. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 5 for the Dwarf. Alright, so that takes regularly turn number 5. So this time around, Iron Major does a couple things first. First of all, he stands up all of his players, just in case there's some more disaster strikes here in a second. At the same time, he also moves up his blitzer over here, player number 3, Berlin Byronson. He actually has to move up his maximum allowance in order to come over here. But here's where the problem comes in. Once again, we have controversy taking place. Othgrin Zakmirson stands back up again, losing 3 squares to his movement, moves up to pick up the ball, catches agility, and Iron Major was actually thinking about rushing it. And all of us were like, no, don't rush it, because you know what's going to happen. You're going to roll a 1, and you're going to fail again. Then he says, nah, forget you guys. I got this. He rolls his dice. He rolls a 1. So because of that, he drops the ball. The ball bounces 1 more square down once again to the 6 o'clock position right at the bottom. And just like that, causes immediate turnover for the Dwarves. I swear, my friends need to stop rushing the ball. It's as simple as that. They need to stop rushing it, because my friends are rolling 1s like crazy in this battle report. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 5 for the Undead. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 5. So some pretty dramatic things happen. First of all, Petsu the Shadow manages to pick up the ball, and he actually just goes up the rest of his movement allowance. Loses 3 squares in the process of doing so, but he decides not to rush it. So because he's right over here at the end zone. Meanwhile, players number 12, that's the gifted, as well as player number 6, Amatan Afe. Basically, they move up together to give a support to this blitz action from Amatan Afe. He actually throws directly into Berlin Burleson, but wasn't able to do anything but push him, so because that pushed him right up here at the top. Meanwhile, over here in the lines of scrimmage, though, so some serious action took place. Zombies are pushing course players out of the way, so that way they have a couple of avenues of approach. They have one avenue they can exploit here, as well as down here. Now, the most dramatic thing, of course, is player number 2. That's the mummy Sinru Nabaten. He actually throws a block directly into player 12, Moradin Bokdorsen, which is one of the blockers. Managed to penetrate his armor and also knock him out as well. So because of that, our Major has 2 players who are currently in the knockout box of his dugout, dropping his players from 11 to 9. So the Shambling Undead are causing all kinds of problems. Now, the very last thing that my sister Shade does, she activates player number 1, her mummy Apheb of the Sands. He actually moves up his maximum allowance, goes for it twice. On his second one, he rolls a 1, though, so Shade actually burns up her very last of her rerolls for this first half. And so because of that, she decides to go again, made it successfully, so that way she's right next to this Slayer. So in case the Slayer tries to get back on his feet again, he's got to try to dodge this mummy, which can cause him all kinds of problems. And that pretty much makes up turn number 5 for the Shambling Undead. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 6 for the Dwarves. So we go directly to the top of turn number 6, and unfortunately for my friend Iron Major, he forgets to move his turn marker, which is a legal procedure, which causes immediate turnover automatically. So he loses a turn, which is all kinds of bad. So because of that, we go directly to the top of turn number 6 for the Shambling Undead from my little sister Shade. Alright, so we go directly to the top of turn number 6 for the Champions of Death. As you can see, quite a bit of things have happened over here on this table. Pretty much, Shade actually pushes forward for all of her team members, exploring this avenue of approach, moving zombie skeletons as well as her ghoul directly forward. She decides not to rush it just because she doesn't want to roll another one, and plus she's got 2 more turns to make it to the drive all the way to the end zone, hopefully get a touchdown there. However, what caused the turnover there is up here in the top with player number 2. That is Sinru Nabotan, the mummy. He tries to throw a block directly into this player so that way they can't blitz. Unfortunately, he rolled player down on both of his dice because he does go crashing down. And Shade is out of rerolls, so that pretty much causes the end of the turn. And it leads directly to the top of turn number 7 for the Dwarves. Alright, we go back to turn number 7 for the Dwarf Giants. Unfortunately for my Mighty Iron Major, it was a pretty short-lived turn. What ends up happening is that his blitzer, player number 3, Berlin Burrison, does try to escape the tackle zone from the white player number 6, Aman Afe. Unfortunately for him, though, he failed his agility test trying to get out of the tackle zone, so because he does go crashing to the ground, and it causes immediate turnover directly towards the Champions of Death. So because of that, we go directly to the bottom, turn number 7 for the Champions of Death. Alright, so we go directly to turn number 7 for the Shambling Undead for the Champions of Death, and Shade actually does a lot of movement over here in the white zone. As you can see, she kind of creates this kind of gauntlet of players to support Petsu the Shadow, so that way he goes within 5 squares of the end zone. Once again, she doesn't go for it because she doesn't need to, but she has a lot of coverage taking place for a player up here. Meanwhile, over here in the top, probably the most dramatic thing was this player, this white character. So what ended up happening is that this skeleton where throws a block directly into his blitzer, managed to push him back 1 square, which opens a hole here that player number 5, Hfat Sinut, which is one of the whites, he tries to go past the tackle zone past his blocker, but unfortunately he does fail his agility test, and with no more rerolls, he does go crash in the ground, which caused immediate turnover for the Shambling Undead. So because of that, we go directly to the top of turn number 8 for the Dwarves. So for turn number 8 for the Dwarves, pretty uneventful. Iron Mage's pretty much just got his guys back on their feet again for the most part. He does try to do a blitz action with this player, but unfortunately it ends up being with a push because it ends up being a chain push, pushing this zombie directly downward and also pushing this ghoul 1 more square closer to actually getting directly towards his goal. So because of that pretty much ends turn number 8 for the first half for the Dwarves. We go directly to the bottom of turn number 8 for the Shambling Undead. So that takes directly to the top of bottom of turn number 8 for the Shambling Undead, and touchdown number 1 for the Champions of Death. Shade activated Petsu the Shadow, had him run directly 5 squares forward directly towards the end zone, and scoring her very first touchdown for the first half, and just at the very buzzer beater directly to the end of the clock. So because of that, now we end up with turn number 1, first half over with. We go directly to the top of the second half, and once again, we will come back after my friends have re-racked, and then of course we'll continue on with the second half of the game. Alright, so now we're back for the second half. As you can see, both teams have lined up as well, and of course the Champions of Death will be receiving in the second half. So because of the ball finally bounces all the way just 1 square shy of actually making it directly to the Champions of Death end zone. So because that prevented a touchback. However, when it came to the kickoff table, a 12 was rolled, which means that the crowd is invading the pitch. So because that, both of my friends had to roll a D3, plus their fan factors, whoever had the most actually won this one. So because of that, the Champions of Death actually won the roll-off. So because that D3 opponents on the rival team randomly select off the roster actually get stunned. So my sister Shade rolled a 2 on that one. So because of that, both these characters, Oathgrin Zakmirson, the runner, as well as Norin Zakranson, the Troll Slayer, both those guys get stunned right off the bat because they both go face down, and that pretty much starts off the drive. Now the handicap for the Dwarf Giants. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 1 for the Champions of Death. So we are back at the top of turn number 1 for the Champions of Death, and as you can see, quite a bit has actually happened. As you can see, Shade pretty much just dominated in the opening lines of scrimmage, managed to knock down as well as push back a lot of people directly in the line of scrimmage, advancing forward beyond the midsection. At the same time, she also moved up her goal Petsu the Shadow. He actually just moved up his normal movement allowance. I decided not to rush it, just because my friends have been rolling a bunch of ones every single time they try to rush the ball, so she decided to kind of play it safe at this point. And that pretty much makes up turn number 1. As you can see, a lot of the players are pretty much just knocked down right now, so a lot of these guys are not going to be able to pull out block actions except for maybe these 2 characters here. Everybody else, though, has got to lose their blocking actions because they get back on their feet again. So that being said, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Dwarf. So that takes directly to the bottom of turn number 1 for the Dwarf Giants, and as you can see, quite a bit of things have taken place. For the most part, Iron Major pretty much just stood up most of his players, so that way they came back into position once again. The most dramatic thing happened over here in the white zone. His player runner number 7, Tharbor Olekson, he actually managed to pass his agility test to escape the tackle zone of the skeleton. From there, he skirted around the outside of the wide zone and made his way directly towards Petsu the Shadow. Looks like he's going to try to throw a blitz directly into this ghoul. He's able to try to stop this ghoul from making a second touchdown. Meanwhile, the rest of the team pretty much stands up. We have a couple of players who were stunned earlier roll over onto their backs. However, the most dramatic thing took place over here with player number 10. Unfortunately, number 10 tried to throw a Zakrag Tacklezone and tries to throw a block directly into the zombie, but gets a player down result as well. To make matters worse, his armor does get penetrated, and he also gets a stun result. So he is currently face down on the ground, and he's currently bleeding out, which is all kinds of bad. And that pretty much makes up turn number 1 for the Dwarves. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Champions of Death. Alright, so that takes us to the top of turn number 2 for the Champions of Death, and some crazy things have occurred. So let's go on and talk about what happened first of all. So first of all, as you can see, Shade has pretty much been pushing up the defense on the wide zones on either side, making 2 pockets, one over here as well as one over here, for 2 avenues of approach for her ghoul to actually run through. Meanwhile, she's really trying to push right through the center of the line, of course, to make some more opening gaps. Unfortunately for her, though, player number 1, his name was Athip of the Sands. He tries to throw a block directly into this character. Actually rolled 3 both player down, so she burned up one of her rerolls in this first half, so now she's down to 2 rerolls instead. Instead, for a reroll, she got a POW instead, managed to push him through and make way. So because of that, because she was kind of squirreling up throwing more blocks, she decided to move Petsu the Shadow, her ghoul, directly to the top, as the skeleton coming right behind her to protect her ghoul directly from this dwarf player over here as well. However, the main crazy part was down over here. Shay decided to try to do a foul. She had player number 13, one of her zombies' name is Wapwawet, throw a foul directly into Norin Zakarunson, which was the Troll Slayer. Managed to get 12s on that one. So because of that, she does get caught by the ref, but penetrates his armor because of that, and was able to put a casualty on him. Put a serious injury directly onto the dwarf, so he does suffer a niggling injury, and at the same time will miss out his next game as well. Meanwhile, player number 13, because he got caught, is sent off, so he will not be allowed to play for the rest of the match, but earns himself 2 star player points at the same time. So Shade actually did her very first foul, which is kind of cool. Now, because of course he got caught, that caused immediate turnover, so we go directly to the bottom of turn number 2 for the Dwarf Giants. Alright, so we're back with the draw of turn number 2 for the Dwarf Giants, and unfortunately for Iron Major, it was a short turn. For the most part, he did send in his blitzer, Baron Borlinson. He actually managed to escape the tackle zone out of this Wraith, White, and actually throws a blitz action directly into Petsu the Shadow. But unfortunately for him, though, he got a player knockdown result. So because he did use his pro skill and re-roll the roll and managed to get a push, so because he managed to push Petsu the Shadow 1 space down, so not much really happened there. From there, he then takes his runner, Othgrin Zakmirson, actually has a run right behind Petsu the Shadow as well. At the same time, his second runner, Othgrin Zakmirson, he managed to get back on his feet again, managed to dodge the tackle zone out of this white and made his way directly to this direction. Looks like he's trying to get up to the ball. At the same time, kind of surrounds this guy here. However, the main thing is that one of his blockers does try to throw a block with assists from 4 players directly into this mummy, but unfortunately for him, though, he rolled a both knockdown result. He decided to burn up his reroll, and that's because they both go crashing down and cause immediate turnover as well. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 3 for the Champions of Death. Alright, so it takes directly to the top of turn number 3, and it's kind of a short-lived term. It's basically one thing ended up happening. So Shade activated player number 5, Apta Senat, which is one of her whites. He actually throws a blitz action going directly into Borland Berlinson and throws a block directly into him. But unfortunately, they both got both player down, so they both fall to the ground. So because of they both get knocked out. Luckily for them, none of them had their armor penetrated, so they're both perfectly fine. Shade decided not to use up a reroll in that one, so because that kind of ends turn number 3 for the Champions of Death. So that being said, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the Dwarf Giants. So that brings us directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the Dwarf Giants. Unfortunately for Iron Major, all he really did is kind of help out Shay for that matter. So because of that, he does throw some blocks. First of all, he throws a block with one of his players, his runner, That player's name is Tharbor Olekson. He throws a block directly into Pits of the Shadow, but unfortunately he got a pushback, unfortunately, with that one. So because that managed to put Petsu over one more square directly into the line of scrimmage, causing a chain push to push everyone down. So from there, Iron Major then activates his second runner, off-brand Zach Mearson, who does a blitz action from directly down here, moves up behind him and nails him again, and unfortunately gets another push action as well because Petsu's got the dodge skill. So once again, they all get pushed right through the line of scrimmage, with the mummy actually taking point, which is player number 2, Sindru Nabatin. So because of that, as a mad scramble, Iron Major decided to take the rest of his players who are unengaged and have them go directly into this mummy, so that way if the mummy tries to throw a block and tries to move out, it's got to go against equal squares, so that way they can try to stop this ghoul from trying to escape. And the rest of this guy over here, he doesn't throw a block because he managed to get back on his feet again. And so that's the situation going over there. So yeah, it's pretty crazy, all things considered. So with the turn number 3 over with, we go directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Champions of Death. So that takes us to the top of turn number 4 for the Champions of Death. If you notice, my little sister Shay did forget to move her turn marker, so because of that, it does cause a legal procedure, which basically means she loses turn, which causes an immediate turnover as well. So because of that, she kind of lost her turn on that one. So because of that, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 4 for Iron Major as well as the Dwarf Giants. Alright, so in the bottom of turn number 4 for Iron Major, the Dwarf Giants, and some crazy things have happened over here in the center line of scrimmage. First of all, this blitzer, Berlin Barrison, managed to throw a block directly into this mummy player number 2, Sindru Nabata, managed to push him back with a POW, causing a chain push to take place along the top ranks, actually creating an opening where that ball is located at. And the reason why is because player number 11, Carmen Berlinson, he also throws a block directly into Petsu, managed to cause a POW result, so managed to push him back and also follow through. Now that caused the ball to bounce out of bounds and lands directly onto this player right over here. Now this player originally caught the ball and he did try to escape the tackle zone of this white character, player number 5, Echta Senat, that's his name. God, these Egyptian names are horrible. But anyways, managed to try to escape out there, but he actually trips. He actually fails the agility test. Iron Major does use one of his re-rolls in order to try to re-roll it, but unfortunately he fails it a second time. So the ball does fly out of his hands and lands right in the middle of the square, pretty much ending turn number 4. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 5 for the Champions of Death. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 5 for the Champions of Death, and as you can see for Shade, a lot of dramatic things have occurred on the end field over here, directly towards the dwarf end zone. What ended up happening is that player number 5, which is this white character over here, his name is Achta Senat, managed to use one of his movement squares to go inside the square, managed to pick up the ball. He does have agility 3, and then proceeds to run his maximum allowance all the way directly towards the white zone, heading directly towards the end zone to make sure that he gets a touchdown from there. Now, meanwhile, down over here, the second white player number 6, that character's name is Anatan Afe, as well as player number 12, Thatcher the Gifted. These two guys actually with their maximum allowance from the white zone, moving all the way directly towards the end zone, under provides cover for this guy, so that way when he runs out, he doesn't have to worry about getting hit. Meanwhile, Petsu the Shadows, the reason why he's able to get back up is because this zombie over here manages to knock over this player right here in the middle, which frees up Petsu the Shadow without having to try to escape a tackle zone. So he gets back on his feet again, loses 3 squares of his movement, and then moves up his maximum allowance directly over here in order to provide some coverage for this white player. And that pretty much makes up turn number 5 for Shade. So with that being said, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 5 for the Dwarf Giants. Alright, so that takes us directly to the bottom of turn number 5 for the Dwarf Giants. So Iron Major actually makes a very bold move. He actually does a blitz action from over here. Player number 4, who is a blocker named Thunian Firefinson, he actually does a blitz action, runs all the way here, rushes it, and throws a block directly into player number 5. That player is being Achba the Senat, pushes him directly into the crowd with a POW result, so because he does get injured, he actually gets knocked out pretty solid, so because he goes directly into the dugout, so that player is out for now to the end of the drive. Now the ball does get thrown back in by the crowd into the 3 o'clock position, moves 8 squares all the way down right over here. Unfortunately, next to these 2 players over here can easily pick up the ball and try to make a touchdown. To make matters worse, Iron Major does try to get his player, Berlin Barrison. He does try to actually have him try to escape the tackle zone for player number 2, which is this the mummy Sindru Nabatin. Unfortunately for him, though, he fails his agility test. He decides to use his pro skill, fails that as well, burns up his very last reroll to try to get it done, and fails it again. So because he does go crash into the ground, which then causes an immediate turnover. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 6 for the Champions of Death. So that takes directly to the top of turn number 6 for the Champions of Death. And once again, disaster strikes. Player number 6, he is the white Amaten Afe. He actually goes back, picks the ball, manages to get the ball easily with his 3-up agility. He then runs back directly towards the end zone. And just like always, my sister Shay decides to rush it. And she rushes it, she rolls a 1. So because of that, she tries to re-roll again, burns up one of her re-rolls in order to ignore that, and rolls a second one, and just like that, he does fall. The ball does bounce over 1 square down, and just like that, it causes immediate turnover for the Champions of Death. I don't know what it is about this game. There must be like ice or water on the field or something, but every single time these players have tried to rush it, they've always rolled 1s. I'm not sure what's causing it for my friends, but it's causing a disaster for my friends. It's absolutely insane. So because of that, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 6 for the Dwarves. So from there, we go directly to the bottom of turn number 6, and with a valiant effort, Iron Major does try to rush forward. He does send his player number 4, Carmen Burleson, player number 11. He does try to move as quick as he can using his maximum last to go directly towards the end zone. At the same time, one of his runners as well, player number 1, off-green, Zach Mearson, also managed to do some pretty amazing agility tests, escaping out of these tackle zones and scooping around the pocket, trying to get out. Unfortunately, this blocker does try to escape from this Mummy Senru Nabaten, but unfortunately for him, he fails his agility test. Iron Major doesn't have any more rerolls, so because of that, that guy does fall, causing immediate turnover and the end of turn number 6. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 7 for the Champions of Death. So with that, we go directly to the top of turn number 7 for the Champions of Death. And what ends up happening is that touchdown number 2 for the Champions of Death. Player number 6, which is the white player, Amnitin Afe. He managed to get back on his feet again, losing 3 squares of his movement, moves down 1 square, making up his 4th movement, picks up the ball, manages to pass with his agility test, goes 1 more square over, and manages to secure a 2nd touchdown for the Champions of Death. So just like that, they now have 2 touchdowns, as opposed to 0 touchdowns for the Dwarf Giants. So because of that, my buddy Iron Major realizes he's no way he's going to be able to get 2 touchdowns within a turn. So because of that, he just pretty much calls the game at this point, bringing the very first victory for the Champions of Death and a loss for the Dwarf Giants. So that being said, we're going to go directly to the after action report because this battle report is now officially over.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.
Alright, now it's time for the After Action Report for Tales from the Tacklezone Season 2 Old World Conference Game number 4. This is the game between the Dwarf Giants as well as the Champions of Death. So let's go ahead and talk about the Dwarf Giants first. So for the injuries, they did suffer 1 injury in this game with Trollslayer player number 2, Norman Zacharansson. He suffers a serious injury, so because of that, he will have to have a niggling injury that will follow him throughout the rest of the campaign, and he will also miss his next game as he goes to recovery. Now for advancements, oddly enough, Norman Zacharansson also got the MVP on this one. So because of that, he did level up and learned the Juggernaut skill and increased his gold value by 10,000 gold pieces. Now, the Dwarf Giants did manage to score 40,000 gold pieces from winnings in the game. Unfortunately for them, though, they do not have any dedicated fan changes because they kept on losing their 2 first games. And at the same time, with their 40,000 gold pieces and combined with the 55,000 gold pieces they had in their treasury, they recruited a new Trollslayer player number 8, Unmir Snoragrinson, who cost 95,000 gold pieces. Now, as for inducements, there are no inducements for this team. They do earn 1 league point because they did not manage to score a single touchdown in this game. Their new record now is 0 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw, and Iron Major's new team value is at 1,130 points. Alright, so going for the Champions of Death, this is Shade's team. So for injuries, she actually suffered no injuries for her team on this one. And for advancements, 2 of her players actually leveled up. Ghoul Runner number 3, Petsu the Shadow, learned the Leap skill, so increased his gold value credit by 10,000 gold pieces in value. And at the same time, White Blitzer number 6, Amaten Afe, not only did he manage to score a touchdown, but he also became the MVP for his team as well. So with his star player points, he chose the Mighty Blow skill and also increased his value by 20,000 gold pieces as well. Now, from their winnings, they managed to score 60,000 gold pieces, and Shay decided to put all 60,000 of those gold pieces directly into her treasury. Her plan is to pretty much save up enough gold pieces so that way she can recruit a 3rd Ghoul Runner for her team, which kind of makes sense. At the same time, her dedicated fans did increase by 1, so now she has 2 dedicated fans. She did not recruit anybody at this point, nor buy or purchase any inducements for her team. She did earn 3 league points for actually winning this one, and her new record now is at 1 win, 1 loss, and 0 draws, and her new team value now is at 1,080 points. So there you guys have it. This pretty much ends Battle Report number 7, which is the 4th game in our Old World Conference. As always, please feel free to like, comment, and or subscribe. Your guys' input is valuable to us as always. Also check us out on Facebook, Instagram, as well as blogger.com for all the latest greatest hobby news related to this channel. That's good for this week, guys. We'll catch you guys next one. Peace out and stay classy.